Hello there. The BBC has just become our future Ministry of Truth. They are setting themselves up as the arbiter of truths. The BBC has unveiled its latest creation, BBC Verify, with the aim of addressing the growing threat of disinformation and to build trust with their audience through transparency, it says. And they have a BBC disinformation correspondent, Mariana Spring. Disinformation correspondent? A BBC disinformation correspondent? I'm not sure that's a good job title for what they claim they're trying to do. Or maybe it's more apt than we think. But who's going to verify their truths? Are we going to be allowed to disagree with them? Now this is the setup.
Welcome to BBC Verify. Like you said, we are a team of investigative journalists here at the BBC. We are also a new brand and we are a physical location above the newsroom in London. And the point of the team, as you said, is to verify video, to fact check, to counter disinformation and to analyse really complex stories so we can get to the truth of what's going on. Why does this matter? Well, mistruths can cause really serious harm to society and to the people in them. And so we want to show you our workings and really help you understand how we get to the bottom of what's happening. And I'm going to give you a bit of a flavour of the kind of work that the team are doing. So we're able to look at maps to geolocate specific situations, stuff that's going on. This is just a map of central London where we are now. And this is New Broadcasting House, where I'm speaking to you from. And it's not so important perhaps for the centre of London, but it is when we're analysing war zones or what's happening in hard to reach places. And there's a story on the BBC website today. It's looking at Russian fortifications on the front lines in Ukraine, and you can read more about it there. And there are other ways that we also are able to interrogate what's going on, including on social media. I have some undercover accounts that I've set up for the BBC's Americast podcast, and we use these kinds of undercover accounts. These are the characters that the accounts belong to be able to really understand polarisation online and how what's happening on our social media feeds and what we're being recommended and pushed to us can affect all of us. And they don't offer us a totally exhaustive insight into what's going on, but they can help us understand just how social media works. And then there's also investigating other mistruths and the real world harm they can cause. At the moment, I'm investigating the UK's conspiracy theory movement. I'm trying to understand more about how it's evolved and intensified since the pandemic here in the UK. I'm looking at the alternative media that finds itself at the heart of this movement and a conspiracy theory newspaper that's a part of that as well. I'm looking at the way that alternative media is funded. I'm looking at its impact on local communities. I'm looking at its connections with far-right figures and also its foreign links. That's for a podcast series that will be coming out in June. It's called Mariana in Conspiracy Land and it will be available on BBC Sounds, Radio 4, asking that question, could January the 6th or a German coup attempt like we saw there ever happen here in the UK? So there's a real range of journalism BBC Verify will be doing and you'll be able to see it online, on iPlayer, across BBC News, on your televisions and radio, so do look out for it.
So they're going to trawl social media with fake accounts and then define what is and isn't a conspiracy theory. So in the future, our truth will come with a BBC kite mark on it. What could possibly go wrong? Now, leaked documents show that Keir Starmer's Labour Party plans to extend clear air zones into as many cities as it can once they get into power. And clean air zones are just another form of London's ultra-low emission zone by another name. And they are already springing up across the country. I wonder how hard-pressed motorists will feel about that in our northern cities, in the Labour heartlands. Well, they put up with it in most London Labour areas, so I assume they'll roll over and accept it in the north as well. All part of Labour levelling up, I suppose. Or hopefully the people have had a bellyful of being controlled and manipulated and will give Labour, the Tories, the Lib Dems and the Greens a bit of a shock at the next election. Now, if they can get away with taxing drivers massively in London, then maybe Labour thinks they can get away with taxing the rest of the country into oblivion as well. And don't be fooled into thinking this is all about old vehicles. The tax target will shift to ever newer cars over a short time period, and electric-only vehicles once they've got most of the petrol and diesel cars out of the way. The tax take from the motorist will continue, and part of that tax take will be used to try and subsidise and increase the use of public transport. But once the number of cars they can tax reduces and they can't subsidise public transport anymore from it, then fares will rocket to compensate. Be in no doubt. However you travel, that travel will be taxed, even if the air is 100% clean and the transport is truly green, as if, and you will still be taxed. Now Labour is saying these leaked plans are just talking points, but Starmer has been doing the rounds praising Khan's ULEZ plans, so I don't believe that for one moment. Our civil serpents appear to have their teeth firmly in the Tory jugular with no intention of letting go. Their latest target seems to be the Home Secretary Suella Braverman, and her crime is as yet not fully explained. The allegation is that she got caught speeding and tried to hide it somehow, and also asked one or more of the civil service to arrange a 1-to-1 speed awareness course, presumably to legally avoid the 3 points and not give security concerns at the same time. But in the end, she took the 3 points. But we're also told this occurred a year ago. Why wasn't it dealt with back then? Who was holding on to the info and why for so long? Was it just waiting for the opportune time to bring her and her Rwanda plans down, maybe? And if she does survive this one, I suspect something else will crop up very shortly. Richard.
Hello, and I have been joined in this video by a contingency from our friends in the bovine community. And there they are. They look absolutely delicious. Anyway, so, Suella Braverman. She may have got a parking ticket and something dodgy might have happened, so she could get away with it. Oh, now that's just me putting it very bluntly and crudely. I don't care. I really don't care. I don't care if she got pulled over by the police and then had to jump in the back seat with the officer and perform a bit of gobbledygook, or took one behind the whiskers to be able to get away with it. I don't care. What I care about is her stopping the boats from crossing over the channel. Like many of you, I've had an absolute gutsful. You're paying taxes, right? You are paying taxes to put potentially very dangerous people up in 5-star hotels. Wow. And to give them a weekly allowance. It's not much, but it doesn't really matter if you're living on the black market and you're operating within that. Oh my days. What is going on? And then you have Rishi Sunak saying the other day that people don't care about people's bank balances in British politics. And yet again, I don't care about Rishi Sunak's bank balance. What I care about is the fact that he's Prime Minister and unelected. I do care about that. So then I will call into question his bank balance and his wealth status because of his connections. Just like a certain Mr. Keir Starmer, another very wealthy individual who is also quite openly connected with an outside authoritarian group. You can't say the WEF are authoritarian, can you? Well, they are, when you think about it. They influence everything that's going on around us, and they are looking towards creating some form of singularity transhumanist nightmare. There we go. Anyway, Jeff.
Now, this move to deter white people from attending a Tambo and Bones show has definitely divided opinion, and I have to wonder if that was the aim of the exercise. Now, the theatre involved said that no one was actually excluded, But it is a blackout night, so they can be free from white gaze, which sounds a little disturbing to me. Now, as I understand it, this applies to only one of a series of their performances. So is all the angst this has generated across the press justified? And will it actually stir up more people to toddle along to watch the show to see what all the fuss was about? This single event could, I say could, be dismissed as irrelevant. But once the precedent of such division has been set, where will it end is my question. Equality is equality. This type of division is not equality. So the promoters of this show should have a rethink and maybe attend an equality class. There seems to be a lot of them out there. Richard.
So, there I was, going about my daily routine of going for a walk in the morning, and I came across a little chapel which I sometimes frequent on a Sunday. And outside this beautiful church, or chapel I should say, oh, look what I found. Oh, look. It's a defibrillator. Are they expecting the congregation to start collapsing in the pews? Has the age demographic of that chapel got so high that, well, they can't, they can't leave anything to chance? So I walk on a little further to where I am now, outside a village hall, only half a mile away from the chapel with the defibrillator outside. And oh, look what's outside here as well. Half a mile away, there's the defibrillator. What's that about? Are they expecting the local yoga class to start keeling over and losing their ability to breathe and their heartbeats from going to 0 beats a minute? It's quite strange that they put these things out a few years ago before people started to suddenly say goodbye to us without saying goodbye. Strange that they do that. Like, coincidence, do you think? Possibly. I mean, anything can happen. We do live in an age now where we have excess coincidences. Many, many, many of them. I'm hearing nothing except reports of people developing very short, sudden illnesses, or just saying goodbye on the spot without saying goodbye. Oh, what a world we live in. I won't make light of it. It's terrible. Anyway, Jeff.
And in a little SNP throwaway snippet of news, that swanky 110,000 quid luxury Niseman Bischoff campervan sat outside the house of Nicola Sturgeon's mother-in-law was not insured, according to the Daily Record. In fact, the report says it was never insured. And according to askthepolice.uk, you need to have a vehicle continuously insured unless you have a statutory off-road notice, a SORN. But if it was never insured, how did it get to that house? And if it was never insured, how on earth could it have been an SNP battle bus? And now the SNP seems to be claiming that plans for it to be used as a battle bus were dropped. So a 100 grand asset that only a select few in the party knew about was left to rot in someone's garden, instead of being disposed of to realise some cash when they were cash-strapped. Oh yeah, it gets murkier in SNP land. Richard.
Do you remember when everybody turned racist? I'm not joking. Back in 2019, well, late 2019, early 2020, when we were all terrified of this new emerging illness. People who were East Asian were ostracized because said illness apparently originated in East Asia. But that's a video for another day. But we need to acknowledge that this actually did happen. Do you remember those videos of people in China who were just dropping down in the streets? Gone. I remember them. Oh, it was almost like, I remember those warehouses we saw footage of people screaming. And I thought, my goodness, what have we got coming? Everybody was quite concerned about it initially because it did look utterly terrifying. And I remember at the time, I have to say that there was this young lady in Aldi's in the supermarket, and she was Chinese. And I remember everybody just trying to avoid her. It was so sad. It really was so sad. And I remember she just looked at me with this sort of little bit frightened look on her face, saying, like, I'm not going to hurt you. And my heart actually bled for her. It really did. People stopped eating, Chinese food from Chinese takeaways, and angrily posted about Chinese takeaways on social media, saying that they should all be shut. Yeah, I remember those posts. Disgusting, really, when you think back. People would leave supermarkets if someone who looked East Asian was there, and nobody ordered anything from China. Do you remember the paranoia we all felt? Even though many of us, myself included, in the summer of 2019, had curiously already had an illness with the exact same symptoms as the illness that we were all frightened of months later. Yeah, very strange that. It really was so strange to see how we could become so instantly weary of people just because they were potentially carrying something nasty, because we've been told fed this propaganda, really, when you think back, of this terrifying footage we were seeing coming from China. All of a sudden, even the most liberal left elements of society began genetic profiling of people to see if they looked, where do they come from? Did you react to people who are possibly Chinese like this? Tell the truth, did you? Well, shame on us. Anyway, we hoped you have enjoyed today's show and you're putting your feet up after a hard day's work to support the system that enslaved you before you were even born. The system that you keep going with your taxes. The system that locked you in your home and said that to live a normal life, to work in certain sectors and to travel abroad with ease, you would first need to take a vial of poison. Yes, you're propping up that system. And Prince Andrew, he thanks you for your taxes. Anyway, what did you make of the things that were talked about in today's video? Squirt your thoughts all over Jeff and myself in the comment section below, and we will see you again tomorrow at 5:45. 5:45. Before I say 5:45 again, we'll see you on Saturdays at 7 o'clock. There you go, 7:15. Yeah, 7:15 on Saturdays now. So anyway, there we go. 5:45.